Okay. This is your Act 1 and Scene 1, right? So your drama starts with the dialogue between Antonio and Delio. So we will start from the very beginning. It starts with like enter Antonio and Delio, right? So there is a dialogue between Antonio and Delio, and we are going to read that whole dialogue and whatever there is in the passage, um, and then I'm going to explain. All right. So it's Delio. You are welcome to your country, dear Antonio. You've been long in France, and you return, a very formal Frenchman in your habit. How do you like the French court? Right? So these 4 lines, this is a kind of conversation, a dialogue between Antonio and Delio. So these 4 lines, Delio is asking first in the very first line, like he is welcoming. You can see that you are welcome to your country, dear Antonio. So in the very first line, Delio, the friend of Antonio, he is welcoming his friend, he's welcoming Antonio, right? So he's saying, you're welcome to your country, dear Antonio. Means Antonio was somewhere else, so now he has come back to Italy and his friend is welcoming him, right? In the very second line, you can see it is, you've been long in France and you return, right? So Antonio was in France and now he's back to Italy. Now he is in Italy. And then a very formal Frenchman in your habit, right? So here the word to focus is habit. Habit as when we talk about a routine, so we use the word habit, but here this word is representing something. You can say the appearance, right? So here he's talking about the appearance of Antonio. He's saying a very formal Frenchman in your habit, right? So, and then Delio is saying to Antonio that, in your appearance, in your looking, you are looking really just like just like very a kind of formal Frenchman. How do you like the French code? Then in the next line, there you ask the Antonio that how do you like the French code, right? So he is asking um, about the code of about the French code, like how does it work? Okay, so in these 4 lines, here we can see that like there's a kind of observation, like Delio is making a kind of observation and he's talking about the appearance of Antonio. And then here, Antonio, I admire it, right? Now here there was a question asked by Delio, like how do you like the French code? Because as we saw that Antonio has returned from France, so now Delio is asking him that how what are your views about the French code? So Antonio is answering that I admire it, right? So it means he likes the French code and he's saying, I admire it. I admire the French code. And then in seeking to reduce both state and people, okay? In seeking to reduce both state and people, Rexa,
Yes.
don't move your cursor. You're moving your cursor, right?
No.
No? Okay, all right, I got it. This is not yours. Okay, okay, okay. in seeking to reduce both state and people, right? So, Antonio, I admire it in seeking to reduce both state and people to a fixed order, to a fixed order, okay? And then this is something, another part. Their judicious king begins at home, quits first his royal palace of flattering sycophants, of dissolute and infamous persons, which he sweetly terms his master's masterpiece, the work of heaven, right? So first we are going to do this thing like from here in seeking to reduce both state and people. So what does it mean? By the word reduce here, we doesn't mean that reducing the size. It's not reducing reduction of the size, but in seeking to reduce both the state and people, it means that bringing them closer to each other, right? So in seeking to reduce both state and people means um, to bringing state and people together. So that is how reducing them, bringing them closer to each other, to a fixed order, and putting them in a fixed order. Fixed order means here, of course, we are talking about the running of the government, like how the French court is run or how the king run his court. So he had, what has he done? He has reduced both state and people to a fixed order. Means he has brought them closer to each other, and he has also maintained a kind of order, a kind of discipline in them. Then there is their judicious king, and here we are talking about the king of France, like their judicious king, the king of the government of France, begins at home, right? He begins at home, quits first his royal palace. So when we say that begins at home, we can also mean that he starts working from home, or he starts from home. But in this will not only uh, just defines this thing, but it really shows like begins from home means to start and governing from home. Or you can say that when we talk about the government, like there are so many bad things going on in the government. So when you are going to run your government, so you have to you have to have a kind of check and balance on the system, or to have the accountability of your government. So when we are saying begins at home, it means he has control, or he monitors his home, his the people who are closer to him, are he himself, talking about his home, the people who are close to him, his own palace, the people who are very nearer to him. So he begins from them. It means he monitors them, he controls them, or he has a check and balance on them. He maintains the accountability so that no people should do something wrong. So begins at home, quits first his royal palace, and then he leaves. It also shows a kind of routine or habit, like he starts from home and he leaves. But another, when we are going to take it in other words, so it will show like he starts the accountability, check and balance from home, and then he leaves the royal palace. And which kind of royal palace, that is defined here. He leaves the royal palace. So here leaving of his royal palace is something good. How? Because of flattering sycophants, like because that royal palace is full of the people who surrounds him. Those are a kind of sycophants. So he leaves them, he leaves the royal palace. It means he leaves them, of flattering sycophants. The flattering people, flatter is something, are these both words flattering, those people, it's like it's an adjective here, which is flattering, is describing sycophants. So sycophants are people who always think of their own interests, who are there to protect their own interests. So whatever they tell the king, whatever they tell him anything about his governance or whatsoever, So they are just interested for their own things, the things which benefit them. So flattering will also be something like which is kind of a kind of who deceive them, right? So who are not, whatever they're telling, they are not telling whatever it's true, but whatever it suits them, they just inform the king the things which suits them. So of flattering sycophants, and again of this is of dissolute. Dissolute is something immoral, or immoral people. So these both lines, like begins at home, quits first his royal palace, of flattering sycophants of dissolute. So he starts the his governance, or his rule from his home. He monitors them, he checks them, and then he leaves the royal palace. Which royal palace? Of flattering sycophants and of dissolute, those people who are immoral in nature, and infamous persons. They are also people who are not, who have not a kind of good quality. They are also infamous persons, like the people with not good quality. We can say the people again of bad, having not good characteristic, having not good characters, like, and infamous persons, which he sweetly terms them. Now he means that king, he which he sweetly terms those people who are around him, are his sycophants. He terms them what? His master's masterpiece, the work of heaven. Here we can consider this word master something like the creation of God. The word is pointing towards God. He means by this word like God. His masters means gods. His master's masterpiece. So they people, they are also a kind of masterpiece, and the work of heaven. That is the work. That is how the nature works. The people, they are not good, who are with him, but he is calling them masterpiece. So in one way you can call it a kind of satire, kind of, he is really mocking with the words. He's not, he doesn't mean that thing, but in other words we can say that this is how the nature, this world works. In this world we always don't have the people who are good with nature. There are also people who are who are evil and who are bad, but we have to manage. We create a balance between them. So this is how he calls them. He's not calling them something bad, but he's taking that thing as something positive, and he's calling them as a kind of masterpiece. And then, considering duly that a prince's court, in this slide it is being said that when we consider the prince's court, prince again here it is just pointing towards the king. So considering duly that a prince's court, it means when we consider the prince's court is like a common fountain. Okay, so that prince's court, this court is like a fountain, and common fountain, right? Common means this is something common for all. Whence should flow pure silver drops in general, but if it chance some cursed example poison near the head, right? Then we are moving it a little bit. Okay, do it like here. Okay, so we were here. Considering duly that a prince's court is like a common fountain whence should flow pure silver drops in general, but if it chance some cursed example poisoned near the head, death and diseases through the whole land spread. So what, uh, you know what does it mean by these lines? Like his uh, okay, so when we are considering the king's prince's court, means that king's court is like a common fountain, means this is something which is common for all. And how, I'm going to tell you. Whence should should flow pure silver drops in general. So whenever the king, when the king is running his government, so whatever the orders, whatever the things he's following are the orders he's giving to the people, are the way he's running his government. So everything, if he's a kind of, as we use the word judicious, judicious is a person who is good in judgments, or who is just, person who is kind and just. So when he is just and he is dealing everybody with kindness and justice, so that kind of thing will be, we are calling it common for all, that is going to benefit everyone living under his government, everyone living who is living in his kingdom. So that will be something beneficial for all of them, that is going to benefit all of them. That is why we are using common fountain, that is benefiting all of them. And here, some pure silver drops in general, it means the goodness, whatever the, his right decisions, though, so these are going to be proven right for all, for everyone living in that kingdom. But if it chance some cursed example poisoned near the head, but it is being said that when there is a kind of, any kind of something wrong happens, so that thing is going to damage also everyone, right? Because that king, that government, king's government or king's court is the very main or center point from where everything starts. That's why we are calling it common fountain. This is his government is kind of, is like a fountain. When, fountain, we, when water flows from the fountain, so it starts, water starts flowing from the fountain and then it runs ahead. So when something is going to be good, so that is for everyone. But if something happens bad in that government, or with the court, or with the judge, or with his decisions, so that is also something bad for everyone. So, but if chance some curse, example poison. Poison means if there is any kind of wrong decision, something wrong, any kind of malpractice near the head. Head here, it is pointing towards king and his government, right? So it is being said that if something happens bad in his government and his court, with the king, with his decisions, so that is going to be dangerous for all his people, for his whole kingdom. Then death and diseases through the whole land is spread. So if something is going wrong, so that wrong things, these, so here we are using a kind of phrase, death and diseases, right? So we are death and diseases here, it is representing malpractices, bad things, evil things. So that is going to spread through the whole land, throughout his whole kingdom, right? And what is it makes this blessed government? Now it is, he is saying that which is the thing which makes a government a blessed government, a good government, a kind government. Which thing is that? But a most provident counsel who dare freely, provident uh, counsel those people who are advising the king. And provident means those who tell him something in advance, like whatever it's going to happen in future, so they should tell him, they should inform the king uh, uh, in advance, so that they should be aware of these all consequences, or they should be ready for all the whatever it's going to happen in future. So, but a most provident counsel who dare freely inform him the corruption of the times. So, and what it what is it makes this blessed government but a most provident council who dare freely inform him the corruption of the time. So what is the good thing about the government? It is its provident council who dares, who dares to inform the king about the corruption. So corruption means whatever the malpractices which are going on in the government, in the kingdom. So his council should be um, uh, should have the courage to tell the right things to the court, to the king, so that he can make, he should be able to make right decisions at right times. Though some of the court hold it presumption to instruct princes what they ought to do, right? So here the word presumption, it means a kind of disrespect. Though some of the court hold it disrespect, some of the courts think it, taking advice from the council, takes it a kind of disrespect. And some of the kings, they think that this is not, you know, his councils, they cannot tell him that what is, right or what is wrong. uh, they think that the king are, they have the whole responsibility, and they have the authority, the power, they can decide whatever they want to do. But the right thing, what is the right thing? The right thing is that though some of the courts hold it presumption to instruct princes what they ought to do, so they, some of the courts or some of the kings, they take it something disrespectful that their princes are telling them what to do. It is a noble duty to inform them, but the right thing is that they should be informed, right? So they should accept their, council's advice. That is a noble duty, what they ought to foresee, right? So it should be informed that what is coming in future, what is there, what is lying, what is future bringing for them. So they should know about the future, so that they should be prepared in advance to carry out, his their orders, to fulfill his their orders according to the circumstances, whatever they are going to face in future. They should be prepared in advance. So this is the good thing, that they should take advice of their council. Okay, so this was the first part. And then here starts the dialogue between Basola. Here comes the Basola. So this whole was the a kind of dialogue between Delio and Antonio. Like we started from the Delio. This was Delio. He spoke about the appearance of of Antonio, and then he asked about the French court, the ruling or the government system of the French court. And then this was Antonio who was describing it all about the French court. And actually, he was just comparing. He was there. You can see, like he was summarizing what he has learned from his travel, because he was in France. So he was telling everything to Dalio, that what he saw during his journey. Now I'm just going to tell you about just a minute. This is how uh, uh, hmm, okay, okay, this is what is the summary of those few lines which we have read now. Like summary, the play begins at the Duchess of Malfi's palace in Amalfi. Antonio, the Duchess' steward, has just returned from French court to Amalfi, where his friend and confidant is a person who is privy who knows everything about you, a kind of person who knows everything about you, but he keeps secret of you. He doesn't tell your secrets to someone else. So that person is known as confident. His friend and confidant Delio greets him. Delio asks what Antonio thought about his time in France, and Antonio responds that the French king is ruling well. So this whole was the praise of the French king, whatever he was describing. So he responds that the French king is ruling well by ridding himself of flatterers and by treating his court like a fountain. Good flows throughout the land when it is properly functioning. But if the fountain is poisoned, fountain means the head. The head you can call either the king or the court of the king. If it is poisoned, if the fountain is poisoned near the head, head, you can call it the king or call it the court near the head, death and disease flow to the country. The king is also surrounded by council and people who are unafraid to warn him and to speak their minds. So, this was the summary of the lines which we read. And then, how will you analyze that whole? What is the analysis of that passage? The text which you read is Antonio's opening praise of the French court sets up a comparison to the Italian court, right? Now, because now he was Italy, so he had the experience of both the courts. He had the experience of Italian court, and because he had been to France, so he also had the experience of French court. So he was comparing both the courts, which contemporary audiences would have associated with sophisticated corruption, right? Now, what is it? Like, whatever the things Antonio was telling about the French court, that that would have been associated with sophisticated corruption. Why? Because the corruption was so much prevalent in Italian courts. Like in Italian courts, there was a lot of corruption. So corruption was prevalent in Italian courts. So that could be considered like it could also be considered about the French court, that like the French court, the French government is also corrupt. But Antonio was telling that the French court was not corrupt as of the Italian court, right? An ideal court, he says. So he's calling that French court an ideal court. An ide- are he's describing what should be an ideal court. An ideal court, he says, should spread goodness throughout the country, but the structure of government is such that by nature it is susceptible to poisoning by the way of corruption or abuse of the power. So he's saying that ideal court should have the should spread the goodness throughout the country, but he is a kind of he is his fear about the government, about the running of the government. He's saying that the governments are always susceptible to poisoning by the way of corruption. So they can also be corrupted or abuse of power. The rulers can misuse their authority, their power. From the very start of the play, we are told that death and suffering have the potential to cascade downward from the head of the government. So it is being said that whatever the things are, the evil things are bad things, with whatever those things which are prevalent in any society, in any government, so they come from above, they come from the court, they come from the king. If the king is just, if he's kind with his people, or he's ruling the government in a proper way, so there will be goodness in his whole country. But if something is wrong with the king, so then we are using the phrase like death and suffering, it spreads throughout the country. Okay. Yes, Rixa. Did you understand?
Yeah, some
Okay.
of it.
Yeah. Okay. Now we were here. Here comes the Busola, the only court Gaul. Yet I observe his railing. Okay. Now the word is Gaul. The word Gaul means bold, but here it is also showing something, evil or bad, because Gaul, also take a kind of, we use a word kind of gallbladder. Do you know gallbladder?
No,
We have organ. Human beings have an organ called gallbladder in biology. Have you heard?
no,
No. So that thing is, and when the idea of gallbladder comes into our mind, so that is something bitter. With that word, we something comes in our mind that there's something bitter. So here we can call him the person who was, not good person in that quote. But when you will see the meaning of the word gall, that also means someone who is bold. So now there's a kind of, dialogue. Here comes the Basola. So Basola enters now. Now these are the dialogues. These are being said by Antonio. Okay, the only quote Gaul. Yet I observe his railing is not for simple love of piety. Okay, now this is Antonio. These are the lines of Antonio, who is, talking about Basola, like he is the kind of Gaul. um you can take it in both ways. You can call him a kind of evil person, um, and then if you want to call him evil plus bold, so you can say like he's a bold, as he is evil, but he's a kind of bold person. Okay. Yet I observe his railing. Railing is anger. Okay. So Antonio is saying, yet I observe his railing. So whatever the railing, whatever the anger he has, is not for simple love of piety. So, Basola's anger is not for something good, not for something, pious or something, to get something good in the court. He 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 is not angry on the things, whatever it's going on, whatever the bad things are going on in the court. He's not furious, he is not angry for these things, but indeed he rails at those things which he wants. He is angry because he does not have those things which he wants. It means he's showing that this person, this Busola, is a kind of person who just thinks of himself, who just thinks of his own interest, not of the interest of the people, right? So, and then indeed he rails at those things which he wants, would be as lecherous, covetous, or proud. Lecherous is something, a kind of, this is an offensive word, a kind of, something which it desires, or something, bad things which it desires. And covetous is again a kind of desires, are which are also a kind of, immoral things. And then proud. So these are the things which Busola wants. So Busola wants to be, lecherous, covetous, and proud. Bloody or envious as he is any man, Okay, we are here. Bloody or envious as any man. This is a kind of informal word and offensive word. So he is, Antonio is describing him as envious, as lecherous, as covetous, and he wants to possess, means Basola want to possess these all qualities. That's why he's angry. He's always angry in the court. He always looks angry because he doesn't possess these all things. He wants these all, even though these all are bad qualities, but Basola wants these all things. So if he had means to be so, okay. So here Antonio is saying that Basola wants these all things if he can. If he has means, so he want to get these all things by all means. Okay. Then here is the cardinal. Then cardinal comes in. Now there is enter cardinal and Basola. Now there will be dialogue between cardinal and Basola. So we started from a dialogue, Delio, then Antonio, then after Antonio, there was Basola, and okay, here came the Basola. So here these all are the lines which are being said for Basola by Antonio. Now Cardinal is there in the court. Now there will be dialogue between Cardinal and Basola. Okay, enter Cardinal and Basola. Now there will be dialogue between Basola and Cardinal. So Basola is saying, I do haunt you still. So he is saying to the Cardinal, I do haunt you still. Haunt means something, troubling. He creates a kind of problems for him. So he's saying that still, do I create problems for you, or still, I something, um, like you are angry with me, or I offend you. No, I haunt you means I offend you, still I offend you. So Basola is asking uh, cardinal, he then cardinal. So cardinal is replying, so Basola, I've done you better service than to be slighted thus. Right? Basola is saying, I've done you better service than to be slighted thus. So he's saying that, whatever your behavior, Basola is saying to the cardinal, like whatever your behavior is with me, I don't deserve that behavior. I have done you better service, and I don't deserve to be insulted like this. Slighted word, it means insult. Okay, so I don't want to be, um, I don't deserve this kind of insult from your side. Miserable age, Basola, he continues, miserable age, where only the reward of doing well is the doing of it. Okay, so he's saying a kind of, he's talking about the period, that the situation where he is. So he's saying that, which kind of world or which kind of time is this, or